What a rowdy crowd today. There she is. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for staying around today. Giving our introductory talk is Elizabeth Goldstein. We should see her up on the screen, so if you want to adjust your view for the screen for the opening talk. Elizabeth has been practicing with the Kwan School of Zen for over 20 years and became a Dharma teacher in 2025. She's a member of the Providence Zen Center and the online Kwan School of Zen community. She was the editor for the book Composing Our Karma. She lives in South Burlington, Vermont with her family and is a psychotherapist in private practice. Answering questions today up front is Colin Beavan. Colin, I'm scrolling. He's here. There he is. Colin first practiced in the Kwan School of Zen in 1996. He is a father, a trusted advisor and coach, and the author of several books, including How to Be Alive and No Impact Man. He lives in upstate New York. His home temple is the Chogye International Zen Center, and he received Inka to teach in April 2022. So hopefully after the talk, we have lots of questions for Colin. Give him some challenges. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi, Colin. It's good to, I was going to say see you, except I can't see you anymore, except the people on Zoom. So it's good to see you. Today's Father's Day, so I thought I'd talk about fathers and how our practice can help with father relationships and help us think about fathers. I thought I'd start with how our practice has helped me over the years with my relationship with my father. His name is Steve, and over my adult life, my relationship with my dad has been complicated. At first, in adulthood, as I became an adult, there was a distance that grew in our relationship, and I didn't know how to relate to him in a way that felt healthy to me, and so I kept my distance. And I didn't know why or what was happening, but that felt like the best thing I could do at the time. As I started to practice more, I would go to weekly meditations, I would go on retreats. I noticed that when I would go back to where I'm from, where my dad lives in Maine, that I started to feel more judgmental towards him. That as the practice started sinking in, I wanted to teach him what I'd learned, and I could see that he needed it. So I don't know if any of you have had that experience with your own practice, that as you've practiced a little bit, come to weekly meditations or gone on a retreat, and then gone home to your family of origin, and noticed a poof in an instant, how your equanimity can leave you. So what I noticed that was uncomfortable, and it was clear that it really wasn't clear, or it was clear that I needed to find a better relationship to the situation. So then I just noticed that there was a discomfort when I would come and I would visit my father, and noticed what I noticed and just sat with the discomfort that arose. I started to sit more with the limits of my own practice, and just with a big question mark, with less judgment, less checking my practice, less saying what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. But just noticing this big question mark. What is this? What is this discomfort? What is going on here? So that, in some ways, is still where I am, just sitting with the discomforts that arise. But actually, over time, it's become easier. I notice that I feel more relaxed around my father. I have more patience. I have more appreciation for what he has to offer me. He taught me, like a good Mainer, he taught me a lot of survival skills. I can hunt, I can fish, I can grow things and forage in the woods and find my way around with a compass. He taught me to drive a car and a boat. He taught me how to shoot an arrow. So I feel grateful for those things. He taught me to appreciate music. And one of the things that came with recognizing the limits, his limits and my limitations, has to do with opening up to what father figures are more broadly. What is a father? What is father? It's a concept. And something about that reminded me of this book that I've been reading that was recommended to me by one of the teachers in our school, Branching Streams Flow in the Darkness. It's a translation of the Sandokai, which is translated here. It's a poem by a Zen master, and that's translated as the harmony of difference and equality. And this particular translation was recommended to me by Judy Reitman because of the commentary that is provided. And I should say that, so one of the things that Suzuki Roshi, who did this translation, says that's, I think, relevant to this question of father figures is the root of human potentiality is our advantage as well as our disadvantage. So to recognize that we get what we get and then we work with what that is, whether that's within us or within anything that we encounter. You learn from what's available. So that's how our Zen ancestors have passed down through a patriarchal process, for the most part, the knowledge that we have today. So I think that is very interesting. This, the poet, Sakido is how it's his name in Japanese, although I'm probably mispronouncing that. We have a common ancestor with him. The author of this poem, the sixth patriarch of Zen, was one of his teachers. And he actually wrote this poem because of a rift that occurred in Zen between students of, I think it was the fifth patriarch. So there was a little bit of a disagreement about how to proceed with the Zen business. So let's see. I wanted to share a little bit more about that. People become confused because of the way they evaluate things. discriminating between the dull and the keen. But from the standpoint of the ancestors, they're all the same. All the ancestors understood this point. So there is no northern ancestor or southern ancestor. That was part of the, disagreement about how to teach Zen. So studying Buddhism is not like studying other things. It may take time before you can accept the teaching completely. The most important factor is you yourself rather than your teacher. When you study hard, what you receive from your teacher is the spirit of study. That spirit will be transmitted from warm hand to warm hand. And you should do it. That's all. There is nothing to transmit to you, and what you learn may be from books or from other teachers, so that is why we have teachers as well as a master. So in our school, we have a lot of ancestors, and one of them is Sung-san, and he described patriarchal Zen as a way of understanding that how truth is transmitted through an unbroken lineage, going back to Bodhidharma and the Buddha. And he described patriarchal Zen like this: everything just like this is already truth. So that's the patriarchal thing that is passed down from generation to generation. And what we can learn from our teachers, what I've learned from my teacher. I learned a lot from Bobby. She talks sometimes about how she worked with her relationship with her father, and I learned from that. For example, she said she also had a difficult relationship with her father, and after he died, she did Jijang Bosal chanting. You might have heard of that. It's something in our school that we do for people after they've died. And she said she really got to know her father better and really worked on her relationship with him. And that was after he passed away. So there are a lot of different ways to work with us, and a lot of different teachings that are available to us. But the most important thing is everything just like this is already truth. Thank you.
Could you mention the lineage, Susan, and who Bobby was? She didn't say who Bobby was.
Elizabeth, somebody's asking who Bobby is. Can you just say who Bobby is?
That's a really important point. So she's, I guess you could say, the current patriarch of our lineage. So she is the head teacher of the Kwan School of Zen. And she's also my teacher, although I feel like there are a lot of teachers, great teachers in our school, and I learned from all of them. That's who Bobby is.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for your talk. Thanks for pointing out fathers as our teachers. I was thinking while you were talking that thoughts appeared that called themselves memories of my father doing some really bad shit when I was a kid. And then I was thinking, I was noticing that this person that I call my father is not here, and that I have these thoughts. So where did those thoughts come from? So who's responsible for my relationship to my father? So these are all open questions, of course, where is my father in this? And then a quote from the Tao Te Ching, which is, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's student? And then your talk, Elizabeth, also reminded me of a conversation I had with an energy worker where I was telling her about my childhood, and she said, that sounds very hard. But she said, long before you were born, your father's soul and your soul made an agreement that he would be your teacher. And so then both of you were born, and he was your teacher, and he was required to do some very cruel things to you in order to teach you. And he said, and the energy worker said to me, so that was very hard for you, but imagine how hard it was for the pure soul of your father to agree to do those mean things in order to teach you. That's a way of thinking, that's still thinking, but it helps to loosen my thinking, the thinking of my memories of what my father was. Yeah. So there. Just some thoughts that came up, Elizabeth, while you were talking. So you keep this, so this thought of my father arises, and I can think about the things that he did. And when I have another thought arises as I'm speaking, which is that when I see his face, sometimes the thought of things that he did when I was a child arise, and then my body wants to respond to the thought of the things that he did when I was little, except that man who did those things when I was little no longer exists. Instead, what exists is this little old 93-year-old who can't really walk to the bathroom by himself. So if I respond to the thoughts of the memory of what he did when I was little, and I respond to those thoughts, then I'm punishing this little 93-year-old instead of this man who did mean things. That's not really fair for me to punish this little 93-year-old for something that some 46-year-old did. Also, now I'm a father, so I'm teaching my daughter all how to deal with grumpy people, and I'm teaching her how to deal with people being unreasonable, and I'm teaching her how to deal with people who don't listen as well as they should. I'm giving her all sorts of good lessons. You can tell her I said so. Isn't it complicated to be human? Any questions? Hi. Thank you. Remind me your name, please.
Taiji.
Taji.
Yes. Last week I was doing an introduction talk about my father and my relationship. So today's Father's Day. I was thinking about that. My father, unfortunately, he has moderate to advanced degree of dementia, and he can no longer function, the way we all do, and he's already completely dependent on other people to care. And one of the things that I noticed that when I visited him last time is that he's starting to forget who I am, that I'm his son. And he said, "Oh, nice to meet you." So being a grumpy man that he was, and he's actually turned out to be pretty pleasant and nice old man. And he's actually, we start off with, being introduction, casual talk, and sort of me reminiscing or sort of goes back and forth, sort of feeling guilty, feeling sad, and everything else. And one of the questions I had was, we in our school we often talk about self or lack of self, big I, little I, and the memory of who we are that's kind of, in essence, that's who we are. But in the case of my father, he doesn't have memory of much of anything. So without memory, my question is, what is he, or who is he? So when the memory is gone, where is that self? Is kind of, I've been struggling with that. Does he have that self inside somewhere? We talk about, when we all pass, where does the self go? And sort of I'm starting to question in that intermediate stage of not knowing who he is, but where is him? Where is his self or true self?
Gigi, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
What do you call him?
Well, Dad.
You call him Dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Otosan, which is in Japanese.
Say it again.
Otosan.
Odosa.
Yeah.
Is that what you call him?
I call him Otosan.
Odosa? Okay.
So in Japan.
So Taiji, you ask me. With no memory, who is he now? You ask me. You ask me that.
Otosan.
No, you say to me, you ask me the question. With no memory, who is Odosa now?
With no memory, who is Otosan now?
Okay, then I hit. You say only that?
Only that.
Odosa, it's so nice to see you again. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Yeah. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yeah. Where is their memory? What am I really? What will happen after I die? What happened before I was born? What's my father? Is he a spirit that was sent here to teach me? Am I teaching him? Blah, 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 blah. Me too, Teji. Me too, so much blah, 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 blah going on in my head. Yeah, so much, right? And then it confuses us because what is he? Like, where is he? Blah, blah, blah. And that's human, right? Also, because also, like my dad also is like his diminished mental capacity. So there's a little sadness appears, right? But who he is in this moment is very clear. Yeah. Here, let me tell you. You want me to tell you who you say, Colin, who am I in this moment? You ask me.
Colin, who are you in this moment?
No, who am I?
Who am I?
You say, yeah, that's right.
Who am I?
Ah, so nice to see you again. Okay? Okay.
Okay. Good. Okay. Could I ask one more question?
Some people will do anything for a second hug. Go ahead.
Well, Elizabeth was actually saying during the introductory talk that I think she said she has a better relationship with her father now that he has passed.
Uh-huh.
So my own understanding, of course, this is all intellectual, and I think in our school, intellectual, we know that it doesn't matter. But how can she have a better relationship with somebody who is no longer here? I thought the relationship was about two people or things. Anyway, I'm a little confused.
Well, good. Just keep that in mind. Go sit down. I'm sure Elizabeth will give you her number if you want to ask her about it. I'll tell you a story. Years ago, as a Master Seongyang, Bobby Rhodes, Elizabeth's teacher, head of our school, patriarch. She told me a story about a little girl who died, who was maybe 11. And the little girl died, and then Bobby was very upset and thought, this is not, life is not fair, this is not fair. How could there be Buddha? How could there be God? If this, she saw the suffering of her parents. So Zen Master Xiang Hyung told me this story, and she said to me, and then I realized, I forget the name of the little girl, but she said the little girl, and then I realized so-and-so was just where she had always been. And at the time, I thought, what a lot of intellectual claptrap to spiritually bypass the grief of the little girl dying. But when you ask, Teji, now I see it differently, when you ask, how can Elizabeth have a better relationship with her father now? It's because he's just where he always was. Now, that confuses you. That confuses me. So that's good. When we're not confused, we're in deep trouble. Because I think I know who my father is. And I think he is that person who hurt me so much when I was little. If I act like I'm not confused about who my father is, then I abuse a 93-year-old man. My eyes and my ears and my nose and my tongue and my touch and the objects of my consciousness tell me how everything is right here, right now. If I get caught up in trying to understand what you are or what I am or where we've been or where we're going, right? Honestly, all of that is what the Christians would call sin. That means separation. That means all of that thinking just takes me away from that. Right? Thinking is fun. I like to think. It's fun. I can't stop it. It doesn't matter whether it's fun or not, because it's here, right? But it's just one of the things that is happening. Sometimes I make the mistake of thinking it's all of the things that are happening. You know exactly from here and from here, Teji, when you see your father, you know exactly who he is. Elizabeth knows exactly who her father is. I know exactly who my father is, moment by moment by moment. And if those words that I say confuse you, good, they also confuse me. That's good. Constantly clinging to understanding is a big mistake for me, a big mistake. Yeah. Understanding, it's not that understanding is wrong, it's just understanding, the understanding is illusion, but not understanding is blankness. So what do you understand? Only that? Good! Thank you. Don't know is so much better than a clever answer. Even trying to be clever covers up our true nature. We're all doing this together. We're doing it together. Another question?
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you were talking,
Just tell me your name, please.
Karen.
Karen, I'm Colin.
Hi, Colin.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
As you were talking, it occurred to me that you are, or what I'm hearing is a difference in expectation. And so it occurred to me, how would you define father versus how would you define masculinity in the American culture? And are they aligned? And does it matter?
Yeah, you tell me, does it matter?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Thank you for your teaching. So, Karen, when you and I ask questions like, what does masculinity mean? What does father mean in this culture, right? Especially in this particular time in our culture, what is underneath those questions? Like, in fact, let me ask you, what's underneath those questions for you? What is it in you that causes you to ask those questions?
Because I feel as if, like what I've been hearing from others in this room about my own father, that there's a disconnect between what I was expecting and what I got, right? And so trying to connect those two pieces.
Why? Why do you want to connect those two pieces?
For my own peace.
Let's see, let me take you one more step further. It's not just your peace, but peace probably for your father and everybody around you too, right?
Sure.
What is it in you that wants peace for yourself and everybody around you?
What is it in me that wants peace for everyone around me?
And you.
It's
For all of us, I think.
the human condition? I don't know.
Not to choose a word for you, but I might say love or compassion. That there is something in me that can't reconcile my expectation of my father with the reality of my father, and there's some tension to reconcile those two things, so that I can return to the place of love and compassion. Does that feel?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you ask a question, and this is just my opinion, this has to do with my take on politics in this country, and I'm going to tell you this, but I hope it won't divide us, because I do not myself divide myself from others when I say this, but I tend towards more liberal points of view. But that does not separate me from people who tend towards more conservative point of view, because that place of wanting to be human and wanting to be loved, I think exists in all of us. It's the driving force in all of us. It gets twisted and turned and all sorts of things, so I'm telling you that I'm telling you that I have more liberal or progressive points of view, but I'm just telling you that not because I need to identify with it or not because I want to separate us, but so that you understand what I'm about to say, right? So I tend to get involved in conversations like what is toxic versus divine masculinity? What's true fatherhood versus false fatherhood? I tend to be in conversations like that. And the thing about them is when you said, or doesn't it matter, there's something about it I think that matters, but the thing this is my view, right? The thing, and it doesn't have to be your view, but I think the thing about that conversation that matters the most is the love and the desire to atone at one, come together, find a way where we can understand and be at peace with each other, right? Sometimes we get stuck in with the masculinity versus fatherhood versus patriarchy, blah, blah. We get stuck in the terms and an argument about the terms and who's right and who's wrong. So what I'm saying is the conversation is important to me as long as it's touching base with where the conversation is coming from. Why are we having the conversation? Why are we, I say we collectively, why are we protesting in Los Angeles? Why? This is very important. Because if I'm not careful, I'm protesting to show them, I'll show them, or so my side can win, or so that so that people I think are deserving can get what they deserve. To be careful. it's very sticky. Yeah. I have some expectations about how but you have to be careful, these are my expectations, they are my thoughts, right? I have some expectations and thoughts and ideas. If you're welcome to stand, but if you'd be more comfortable sitting, you're welcome to sit.
Okay, thank you.
Those are my expectations and my thoughts about who my father should have been, right? And there's absolutely nothing he can do to change those thoughts and those expectations. This is where this teaching, right? If you want to understand if you want to understand the minds of the Buddhas past, present, and future, you must view the nature of the entire universe as created by mind alone. I create bad father, right? So, with that creation comes some sort of hurt. It's not that I should just be like, care has to be taken around these things. And by the way, I noticed that I said, I create bad father. I didn't say you do, I said I do. Like, this is for you to figure out for yourself. It's not for me to tell you about you and your father, but I'm telling you about me and my father. My father just only exists here. The word, because as soon as I say father, that's mine, right? Bad father is mine, right? So how do I atone in the face of that thinking, right? So sometimes if I'm not careful, I just be like, I made bad father, put it all down, hit. I'm not going to have any more feelings. That doesn't work like that either, for me, in me, right? But what does help me is to see that, just to know, wait, there is something around that I made bad father, right? There is something around understanding that it's up to me to heal and take what actions and have what conversations I need to heal. There's something about like healing that hurt, which is important. But at the same time, understanding that where is the healing of the hurt, the desire to heal the hurt coming from, which is what we talked about, this human place, this love place, this compassion place. Because we don't want to, I think, I'm saying it now, maybe I'll say something else different. It feels helpful to say it now. We don't want to be at odds with each other. It's not even true. The truth is, we cannot and are never at odds with each other. We cannot be. It's impossible. It is impossible for us to be at odds with each other. We are operating and arising together at all times, but we make the mistake of forgetting that. Another question? It's good to have a question because it stops me from going on. Oh no.
Might be an easy question. So when I'm thinking in terms of my parents, and then as we all do, we have this idea of that they did this and that was good, or they did that and that was bad. Yeah. But when we practice and when I'm kind of doing orientation, I'm talking in terms of technique. Yeah. You know, you sit and you just return back to this moment and that sort of thing. So I was wondering if you could talk about how we label these things of the good and bad, and how if we can kind of get away from that, that can kind of help our way that we think of our parents. Because our parents, there's always something that they did that we think is bad.
Yes.
Okay, but there's also... Let's
do this in real time.
Yes.
Your question, was it good or bad?
They're standing here asking you a question.
Right. So I'm playing with Kwan and I'm not patronizing him, of course, because he's my senior teacher.
But then that answer is quite...
yes.
It's a point.
His answer is really important. So when Kwan Heng says,
Shall I sit down?
yeah, you may. So, Kwan Heng said, we have ideas that something that a parent did was bad or something that a parent did was good, right? And then he said, how do you practice with that? And then I said, let's do it right here. Let me show you right here and right now. And I said, your question, good or bad? And he said, I'm standing here asking you a question, right? This is very, very important. I was going to say this is very, very important teaching, but it's not teaching. It's what Elizabeth said. Everything is just like this, right? So he asked me his question. His question is not good or bad, and it's not good nor not bad. His question is just his question, right? My father is just my father, right? So sitting or practicing or feeling judgment, right? There's a technique for me. These are techniques for me. There's different. One is sometimes there are different types of medicine for different parts of ourselves. So thinking sickness needs thinking medicine. So my father is bad. Well, I can treat that thinking with some different kind of thinking. Like, oh no, my father decided to incarnate as a soul and took on the great hardship of deliberately being mean to me so that I could learn. That's a thinking medicine, right? It means that thinking medicine, the job of thinking medicine, like that is to say, find an opposite story, is just to loosen the thinking a little, right? Just, oh wait, maybe that thinking is not right. Then, a deeper medicine is not thinking medicine. Not thinking medicine is my father, good or bad. Just means at that moment when you say, no good, no bad, just this here, right? So in practice, let's say, I'm sitting. It doesn't have to be sitting. It could be washing the dishes, driving, talking to my father, right? But let's say I'm sitting. I have a memory of my father. I start to, then the feelings are fine, whatever the feelings are. But then I start to think, oh, my dad was bad or my dad was good, right? I start to chase after those thinking. Then I'd be, okay, dad, good or bad? Don't know, right? Once you say, if you're really sincere, dad, good or bad? Like, it's like the Chinese horse. It doesn't mean, do I have good feelings or bad feelings? It just means, dad, good or bad, right? At that moment, we can find no answer. We can find no answer to father, good or bad, right? So that lands us back in don't know. Then, don't know lands us right here. Clear mind means clear perception, means clear thinking, right? So, it means clear action. So don't know means that now we can see what's happening in front of our face and we can deal appropriately with what's happening in front of our face, which is more important than whether dad is good or bad anyway. So to be clear, right, to be simple, dad, good or bad? Like thoughts of bad father or good father. Dad, good or bad? Don't know. Come back here. Then eventually, in 5 seconds or 3 minutes or 3 hours or a year, the story about my father will arise again. Right? Maybe if I'm having a resentment, right, like still, like every 5 seconds while I'm meditating, right, arise again. Father, good or bad? Don't know. Come back. Right? Now, this does not mean I will not think about my father. It just means when the thought appears, where did it come from? Don't know. Come back to the floor, right? And I don't try to stop the thought from arising. It's just that when the thought arises, I see it. Oh, hello. And using this technique, father, good or bad? Don't know. Return to the moment, which means return here. And then the thought arises again. Now, we think that we have to think it all through, but actually what happens in this process of resentment against my father, father, good or bad? Don't know. Resentment against my father. Father, good or bad? Don't know. Not trying to push the thought back down, not judging the thought. Like I'm never saying it's wrong to think that my father is bad. I'm just saying, father, good or bad? Don't know, right? Is it wrong to have this thought? Don't know, right? Just means, really, it just means, honestly, it means paradoxically, don't know about the thought is kind of the same as loving the thought. Loving the thought means not having to change it, not having to work with it, not have to do anything with it, just like, oh, there it is, I love it, okay, bye, and then it goes away, okay, that's free, you're free because I love you, you can leave, I'm going to come back to the floor, like that. And then what happens is, when that happens and we keep seeing it over and over again, it keeps rising up, we see it, Father, God, I don't know. We just see it without judgment, then suddenly it transforms. Suddenly that thought, it turns into compassion and wisdom. Because we've just seen it over and over again. We haven't tried to fight it, we haven't attached to it, we haven't clung to it, we haven't analyzed it. We've just seen it, just suddenly, oh, there's that thought. Huh. You know about that thought? You want me to tell you about that thought? You want me to tell you the purpose of that thought? That suffering thought that I have, you ask me, Colin, why do you suffer?
Colin, why do you suffer?
For you. Because I have that thought about my dad over and over again, and I don't judge it, and it goes down and it transforms. And now I know what it's like when you have that thought about your dad. That's why I have that thought about my dad. You too, not just me. That's why you suffer. Sweet. Sweet. We're doing it together. Another question? Are we done? You look like we might. Are we? Oh, come. What are you sorry for?
This is what. My name is Stu.
What is it?
Stu.
Colin. I think you might have. Did you ask a question the last time? Were you here the last time I was here?
I don't remember.
Okay. Oh, couldn't me either. We're doing this together.
This concept of don't know.
Yes.
How does one act when one says don't know? How do you act if you don't know?
You ask a question, so I answer.
Don't know. I don't follow that.
You say I don't follow that. You think it's funny because, Stu, it's funny because we're taught, or we think, I don't know where it comes from, but I have to know in order to act.
Right.
But pay attention very deeply, it's not so. We just act. Everything just, here it is. It's just here. Like you're gonna, like, did you think to yourself, I better take this breath? Like maybe you had the thought to come up and ask me a question, but even so, did you think to yourself to have a thought to come up and ask me a question?
No.
No. We don't know. Don't know is not a, by the way, you said, I think that this concept of don't know, it's not a concept, it's the most fundamental truth. It's the ground from which all things arise. It's pure quiet. But what's funny is, then when something arises, that's also pure quiet. Yeah. So we think we have to understand, and this is the consolation. What a great question, by the way, Stu, because this is the great consolation of it all. Is that we don't have to know. We can't. Not only do we not, we think it's so paradoxical because we think we have to know, but we can't know. But we think we have to know, but we can't know. And then finally, when we realize we just don't know, what a relief. Is it better to be, I ask you, is it better to be dead or alive?
This moment, it feels like it's better to be alive.
Feels like,
Yes.
but
Don't know.
thank you, Stu. What a relief. We can relax. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Some last words.
You have some last words?
Do you have some last
Let me see. My favorite flavor of ice cream is peanut butter. Thank you.
I like chocolate. Okay, thank you for your talk. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kwan.
Okay. And thank you, Elizabeth. And so the Sunday announcements today is that on our next retreat is a one-day Christian Buddhist retreat on June 21st and a one-day Zen retreat on July 12th. The summer and winter Kyōchei registration is open. There's a 3-day minimum for the summer Kyōchei, which I believe is July 6th. It will begin Saturday. And there's a price adjustment there, so it's you might find that beneficial. And then save the date for Founders Day and Providence Zen Center Zen Fest is August 2nd and August 3rd. So we'll have the end of the summer Kyōchei, and I guess we'll have precept ceremony and that kind of a thing. And then maybe later on that afternoon, we'll have a Zen Fest. I believe that's going to be Saturday afternoon. Is that? Yeah, Saturday afternoon. So it'll be out there, be music and hot dogs and hamburgers, all from Beyond Beef. They're really tasty. I think I've told you that before. Anyways, and there'll be people out there barbecuing, and we'll have all this entertainment. So I hope you can come to that. And I believe we'll have an art show and stuff going on too. And so then Wednesday we have the dinner practice at 5:30. Then we have orientation at 6:15 and some chanting. And West Side Zen is on Thursday nights, offered in person at the Providence Zen in Providence. So you're going to have to look that up and find out the address and that kind of a thing. And also it's on Zoom. And so we have membership and donations. So a good part of how we run is by way of donation. So if you could consider donating. And so you join us for refreshments in a lounge. I don't know if we're going to open the store today, are we? You're going to open? Okay, so the store will also be open. Thank you for appearing. I hope you guys can appear again. And maybe I'll see you. Bye. Yeah. Thank you.
Feels better. Definitely.